The Mountain of Great Faith, how God provided a special lamb. Long ago, there lived a man named Abraham who was a very special friend of God. One quiet night, while the stars twinkled like diamonds in the desert sky, Abraham heard a familiar voice calling his name. Abraham, the voice said. Abraham stood up straight and listened with all his heart. He didn't know that God was about to ask him to do the hardest thing he had ever done, but he answered bravely, "Here I am." The next morning, before the sun had even fully climbed over the hills, Abraham began to get ready. God had told him to go to a place called Moriah and offer a special sacrifice. Abraham didn't understand why, but he trusted that God always had a good plan. He began to load a sturdy donkey with wood for a fire, making sure everything was tied down tightly for the long journey ahead. Abraham took his young son, Isaac, with him. Isaac was the joy of Abraham's life, a miracle boy they had waited for many years. As they walked through the sandy paths and rocky fields, they talked about the wonders of God. For 3 whole days, they traveled under the hot sun, their footsteps rhythmically hitting the dusty ground. Even though his heart felt heavy, Abraham kept his eyes on the distant mountains. Finally, they reached the foot of Mount Moriah. Abraham turned to the helpers who had traveled with them. "Stay here with the donkey," he instructed. "The boy and I will go up there to worship, and then we will come back to you." Abraham spoke with great faith, believing that somehow God would make sure they both returned safely down the mountain together. As they began to climb the steep, winding trail, the air grew thinner and the climb grew harder. Abraham carried a small torch with a flickering flame and a knife for the sacrifice. Isaac, being young and strong, carried the heavy bundle of wood on his own back. The sound of their breathing and the crunch of gravel under their feet were the only sounds in the quiet morning air. Isaac looked at the wood on his back and the fire in his father's hand. He realized something was missing. "Father?" Isaac asked softly. Abraham looked at his son with eyes full of love. "The fire and wood are here," Isaac said. "But where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham took a deep breath and looked up at the mountain peak. "God himself will provide the lamb, my son," he answered. When they reached the very top of the mountain, they worked together to build an altar. They gathered large, flat stones and stacked them one by one until they had a sturdy platform. It was hard work, and the sun was high in the sky now. They laid the wood they had carried all the way up the mountain on top of the stones, preparing everything just as God had commanded. Then came the moment of the ultimate test. Abraham showed Isaac that he must be the sacrifice. Because Isaac loved his father and trusted God just as much, he lay down on the wood. Abraham stayed strong, even though his hands might have trembled. He raised his hand, ready to show God that he loved him more than anything else in the whole world, even more than his precious son. Suddenly, a loud voice shouted from the heavens, "Abraham! Abraham!" Abraham froze and looked up. A bright, shining angel of the Lord appeared in a burst of light. "Do not lay a hand on the boy," the angel said. "Now I know that you truly fear God, because you have not withheld your only son from me." Abraham felt a rush of relief wash over him like cool water. Just then, Abraham heard a rustling sound in the bushes nearby. He looked over and saw a ram caught by its horns in a thicket of thorns. God had provided a lamb, just as Abraham had said. They offered the ram instead of Isaac, and their hearts overflowed with joy. Abraham named that place, "The Lord Will Provide," because he learned that when we trust God, he always takes care of us.